Hi there, everyone. Chad here. Got another book review for you. This time it is A Different Gospel by D.R. McConnell. Of course, I have the updated edition. Foreword by Hank Hanegraaff, who authored Christianity in Crisis. Uh, a bold and revealing look at the biblical and historical basis of the Word of Faith movement. A must-reading for those seeking reliable information about the Word of Faith movement. Um, could not agree more. I know there's a big controversy going on about the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Um, John MacArthur played a big part in that with his Strange Fire conference, where basically he made it seem like he was stretching out a hand of friendship to the quote-unquote charismatics who weren't yet charismaniac, close quote. But, or at least that's what a friend of mine told me. But I gotta say, this book, written by a charismatic, written about the charismatics, actually, pardon me, I'm sorry, that's wrong to say. This was written by a charismatic about charismania, and about charismaniacs, about those caught up in the Word of Faith movement. And I gotta say, this is one of the better books available from Hendrickson Publishing. And I tell you what, this book, I've went through it a couple times, and I've been blessed by it. The second time I went through it, I started highlighting. And I highlighted, believe it or not, quite a bit of information in here. Marked up quite a bit of stuff in here. And I tell you what, beautiful. This book is written in two different parts. Part 1, a historical analysis of the modern faith movement, which in this book, the Word of Faith movement is just referred to as the faith movement. So you have part 1, which is chapters 1 through 5. And this is going to be a historical analysis of the roots of the Word of Faith movement. And in here you're going to learn about a man named E.W. Kenyon. E.W. Kenyon is a man who basically started the Word of Faith movement. He was a Baptist. And he was not a Pentecostal. I gotta say that from the outset. But E.W. Kenyon is the one who really started off the Word of Faith movement. And he was a big fan of Mary Baker Eddy, who was a founder of Christian Science, which is a non-Christian cult. He studied under her, and he got a lot of his ideas from her and some of that New Age writing and New Age thought. So you're going to learn a lot about E.W. Kenyon, about where he studied, where he went to school, and in fact, one of the places he went to school, you're going to find out what the thought pattern was like in that area of the world. Very interesting to learn all this stuff. And I know there's been some harsh reviews saying, well, you cannot connect him to the New Age thought based on where he went to school because there was one professor there who taught it. No, but after he graduates at school, he then continues in with that thought, and he falls in with Mary Baker Eddy. So it definitely shows a connection there. And in fact, what this book originally was, it was Brother McConnell's master's thesis, which was originally going to be called The Kenyon Connection. And he graduated from Oral Roberts University with a master's. I believe it was a master's in divinity. He's a minister now, I think somewhere in Amsterdam. Not totally sure on that. But this book is published by Hendrickson. It's a paperback, and it's not going to cost you more than $20. If you go to christianbook.com, I think it's only like 12 or 14. I think it's 14. But it's a really excellent book, and it's going to go all through the one thing it's going to go through the history of the Word of Faith movement in the first part. The second part, it's going to be a doctrinal analysis of the Word of Faith movement. They're going to examine the doctrines taught, and they're going to look at revelation knowledge. And there is such a thing as revelation knowledge, but it's not what the faith movement claims it is, and it's not their definition of it. They're going to cover the doctrine of identification. And I just want to zoom in on that a little bit so you can really see it. The doctrine of identification, the born-again Jesus, and the atonement of the devil. Now, this is where the Word of Faith movement starts going out of biblical Christianity into the kingdom of the cults. They believe that Jesus Christ actually went to hell, that he died on the cross as a sinner, some even say demon-possessed, was born again in hell and was tortured by the devil for 3 days to make atonement. Obviously, these are people who have never studied the Bible, who've never actually studied anything about systematic theology, because what they claim is actually pure heresy. It is not biblical. It is not scriptural. I used to believe in this until I actually started studying some theology. But thank God he brought me out of it. The next chapter 8, the doctrine of faith. Faith in God versus faith in faith. And that's very important, because really, if you're in the Word of Faith movement, if you're following someone like Joyce Meyer, Jesse Duplantis, Creflo Dollar, Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, Marilyn Hickey, and the list goes on, you're not learning anything about faith. You're learning about self. The next doctrine, divine healing, sickness, symptoms, and Satan. Now, I believe in divine healing. I do not believe in faith healing. Divine healing is when God heals a person, or when God heals a person through their faith or because of their faith. Faith healing, what the Word of Faith teachers are, they're teaching that you heal yourself by your own faith, in essence. They won't come right out and say that, but in essence, that's what they're teaching. It's a form of cosmology, which is occultic as well as cultic. Chapter 10, the doctrine of prosperity, success, and the upwardly mobile Christian. Enough has been written on the name it, claim it, blab it, grab it, speak it, and reap it groups. But that's a really good chapter in itself too. But then chapter 11, summary and conclusion. There's the summary, which was original, but this is the updated edition. And what Mr. McConnell did was he threw in, where do we go from here? Or maybe it was the afterword. One of the two, I can't remember which, where he actually takes the time to go through, and this is a good size work, and it's an easy read. It's less than 230 pages long. But in one section on this, it's either in the last chapter or it's in the afterword, he actually goes through and he answers a couple of his critics, because some of his critics had said some things that were kind of harsh on him. So he goes back and he answers some of his critics. So, very good book, an excellent read, very scholarly. References in here to a couple different theologians, Dr. Charles Farah, Dr. Walter Martin. So yeah, for those of you who think all charismatics are kooky, McConnell proves you wrong on that one. But I gotta say, if you want to get a good book, I would stay away from John MacArthur's Strange Fire, because he's got some strange I'd stay away from John MacArthur's Strange Fire, because he's got some strange thinking in that. But Different Gospel, updated edition by D.R. McConnell, I gotta say, this is a good read. It's a very easy and simple read. It's not complicated. It's not a scholastic book at all, but yet it has some very high quality scholarship in it. So yeah, the one thing I did want to point out was one of the mistakes he made. If I'm not mistaken, it was on page 18. Yeah, page 18, McConnell writes, here it is. In this book, we shall utilize two approaches in proving the cultic nature of the faith movement. Okay, so he's saying that he's going to prove the cultic nature of the faith movement, which, if you read the book honestly and examine the things presented in it, you will agree. But then here at the very bottom in the very next paragraph, the first line in the next paragraph, it says, in describing the origins of the faith movement as cultic, we are not saying that the movement itself is a cult or that all members of the movement are cultists. I have to correct Mr. McConnell on this. Whatever something is by nature is what it is in practice and actuality. The Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult by nature, so they are a cult in their practice and in their living. Same way with Mormons, and I believe it's the same way with the Word of Faith movement. If you're going to call them a cult in their very nature, then that's what they are. Now, when it says not all members of the movement are cultists, I would totally agree with that. There are Jehovah's Witnesses who do not know the Bible one lick, and if they did know the Bible, then they would come out of the watchtower lickety-split. There's been a few that have done that once they're actually confronted with the Bible early enough before they're completely brainwashed. That's what happens. But yeah, this is that's the only complaint I have in this book. I've read it cover to cover a few times, and I keep it on me whenever I go out witnessing, whenever I go out to meals with friends of mine who are possibly charismatic, just in case the subject comes up, because I like to be able to have all the evidence right there for examination. And believe it or not, that's actually happened where I've had to pull this out just to give them quotes because they don't believe things. So this is an excellent book. Like I said, paperback. Find this for $14 to $20 online. Well worth it. Excellent book. Can't recommend it highly enough. Out of 5 stars, I give it 5. Because I just showed you the only problem that was in the book. And that's something we could probably disagree on, but yeah. Different Gospel, updated edition, D.R. McConnell from Hendrickson Publishers. Cannot recommend this thing enough. You gotta go get yourself a copy. Alright. Peace, love. We'll talk to you later. Have a good day.